Today we've got on the show Santa Wellness. So yeah, unbelievable episode, really inspiring to me. Really taught me a different way to look at how I'm looking at my own recovery. Could be a bit of a game changer for me, which is amazing. She has gone on a really, a bit of a crazy journey, bedbound for 4 years, now, healed, and has a really interesting view on what that actually means. So go ahead, guys. This will be like all of these. Oh, and sorry, the other thing is that she used to watch these episodes in bed, listen to these episodes, watch these episodes in bed, dreaming of the day where she would be able to come on the show. And here she is. This is the dream for me, guys. I love it when people have come on who've watched the show from ages ago and are now on. This will be you in the future. So yeah, can't wait to hear from you guys and enjoy enjoy the episodes. Today, I am super excited to have on the show Santa Wellness. How are you doing, Santa?
Yeah, I'm doing great, thank you. Just a bit upset about the weather in the UK, as you might know, raining in
Yeah.
August. So yeah.
Yeah. So for those of you, well, you wouldn't know. So I'm normally based in Bali, but and Santa's here in the UK. I'm actually back in the UK at the moment, so we managed to sync up a time. But Santa's been incredibly patient about getting on a call with me. I've had to cancel a number of times, but she's persevered, and we're here, and we're able to record it. So thank you very much for persevering and believing that this was going to go ahead.
But thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited.
No worries, no worries. So cool. What I'd love to do is to understand what, obviously I've read your story, looked at it, and the content you post on your Instagram, super inspiring, and about that particular part of the story. But obviously we'll get into that. Just like to understand what life was like before any sort of severe chronic illness. Did you always have kind of health issues? Was there always kind of something going on? Could you talk a little bit about maybe your childhood, and then maybe take us through the beginning part of the chronic illness side of things?
Yeah, so I was always seen as by other people and thought of myself as a sick child because I had, one issue after another. I didn't even do PE in school because I got a doctor's note to say that, I'm kind of too unwell to participate in it, even though I wasn't really unwell. It's just a very common practice in my country to do that kind of thing if you don't want to attend the PE. So I think from the start of my life, I had a few things going on wrongly in my body, certain things like deficiencies, for example, or other things that my family probably just didn't even know about, weren't aware about. But I think, as we all know, these are not the main things that obviously contributed to me getting sick. Um, it's just that when I finally got ill, which was in 2019, and then with years of research and understanding where chronic conditions come from, I finally realized that certain things that happen in my life, even during my childhood, like traumas and, a lot of different pressures, they definitely contributed to me being where I was in 2019. And yeah, it just took a long time for me to not just even realize that, but to admit that to myself, to be okay with it, to take some responsibility for what I did as well, and the actions and decisions that I have been making throughout my life that contributed to me getting to that point of being sick. And yeah, I mean, as I was growing up, I think like most of us, I didn't know anything else, and I just thought this is a normal life. My health is the way it is, and everything is fine. And yeah, getting sick was like a wake up call to all the different things in my life going not so well.
Yeah, no, definitely. And before we talk a little bit about kind of, I guess, the onset of getting sick in 2019, do you feel like, because now I'm assuming you're super aware of how important, not only your words are to yourself, but also other people's words. And do you feel like that that identity around kind of being that sickly child, and and then that that was built up throughout your childhood, and then maybe you start to identify that and believe that is the cards you're dealt, and yeah, do you feel like that had like a real impact as you were growing up?
I feel that, yeah, it definitely did have an impact on the way I saw different challenges in my life, maybe, even like physical challenges where I would think, oh, it's just normal for me to always get sick. And I wouldn't even think of, but there must be some reasons why I constantly, I don't know, it's something going on with my immune system. I'm constantly getting these viruses, especially in the last few years, leading up to me getting sick. Um, but yeah, because I was living in a place where I wasn't in touch with my body, with my mind, with none of it. Yeah, I just didn't really pay attention to any of it. But yeah, now definitely I know how much our own words, other people's words, can leave like a big mark on you, on your health, can impact it a lot. And yeah, this is something I think that most of us realize once we get sick, and then hopefully when we heal as well.
Yeah, definitely. And so we get to 2019. You've had, I guess, a life of maybe building that identity, but nothing too severe that's impacting you on a day to day basis. What actually happened in that year? And could you talk a little bit about the kind of symptoms you had and your experience of going through that?
So in 2019 was the time when I actually had my third child. So and the reason why I don't really start my story with this, because I don't want people to get the wrong idea that it was having three children that literally made me sick, which wasn't the case. I did have very hard pregnancies. I had hyperemesis gravidarum, which is nonstop vomiting and feeling nauseous and sick pretty much throughout your whole pregnancy. And I was already bedridden throughout those three pregnancies. So I think in a way that kind of at least a bit prepared me to what was coming in 2019. But that part of my life was just one of a million other things that were going wrong already. Um, um, I mean, it was just I was having different things coming at me, different relationships breaking down, different illnesses, lack of boundaries on my part, which I wasn't even aware of, different toxicity within and without in relationships, in my environment, um, different unhelpful patterns of character like perfectionism, people pleasing. All of this has definitely contributed to me finally then in 2019, after having my third child and going through all of the different things, getting sick. My body simply said, no more, stop, and I cannot any longer go on like this. And it was like a shock to me, simply in one day, I went from living my life and being okay, even though in the last month before I got sick, I was starting to feel a bit more tired. But there was one specific day that I still remember very clearly in my mind, where I just came home, I went to bed, and I just told everyone, I'm really not feeling well. I'm feeling so tired. And that's it. From that moment on, I stayed in bed for pretty much almost 4 years, with ups and downs. But yeah, it was a very traumatic experience, as I'm sure you can relate to. Um, Very scary. And of course, I did all the things. I went to all the doctors, did all the tests, and most of them said, I either don't know what's wrong with you, or it's anxiety, or, it's just a virus and you'll get better in 2 weeks. And I was hoping that I would, but nothing was helping me. And at that point, I think I went to the emergency department so many times in the first month, because I still had a bit of strength left in me to actually go out. Sometimes that doctor started to kind of think that maybe it's a bit crazy or something, because obviously the tests weren't showing anything. There was nothing wrong with me, but I felt like I was literally dying, that I must have some terminal illness or something, because I felt so horrible that I'd never felt like this before in my life.
Mm, God, yeah, I think the what's the word, like the polar opposites of like feeling like you've got your life one day and then it's just taken from you another day is in itself like such a traumatic event to go through. And you kind of, I don't know about you, I mean yours is definitely a lot more dramatic than mine, but I remember at the time I was just thinking, oh, how ungrateful I was to realize, I was living that life and now I don't have it. I'd just love to be that person. And now, what I had in those like early days was just like, I feel like I'm going to wake up and I'm going to recover. It's going to get better. But then as time went on, I obviously start to lose that faith a little bit. In the early days, was that kind of what you were thinking? I will recover. It's just a matter of time, each day, but then each day you're kind of let down. Did you have that similar experience?
Yeah, and as I was researching more and more, and as you might know, different forums, people were saying different things like the root cause is this, is that, is that. I was seeing different doctors who were saying, oh, you can just try this supplement or this tablet or whatever, and you'll get better. And I was jumping on everything and thinking, okay, this would be that one thing that would finally get me better. But, I think after a few months, I started to, probably after 6 months, because that was the point that I read about the most in terms of chronic fatigue in particular, where they say, if you're not recovered after 6 months, then basically you probably will never recover. So, I was very scared and I was starting to lose hope and nothing was helping me. And yeah, I just remember I was looking at all kinds of things. And after maybe a year and a half or so, I even looked into things like people were talking online about surgeries that help them, some extreme surgeries that apparently help some people with CFS. And I was like, okay, like I'm so desperate. Maybe this is something that I'll have to do in the future.
Yeah. And so because you're originally from Kazakhstan, right? And were you in Kazakhstan at the time, or were you in the UK?
No, I was in the UK.
In the
All the Yeah.
And just because I'm knows, as well as anyone in the UK that kind of well, I was a little bit earlier than 2019, but when I first started properly going to doctors was like 2014, 2015, and we have the NHS here, and it's great if you've broken your leg, but if you're going in with chronic symptoms, doctors have such, particularly in London, I don't know in other areas of the UK, but they have such limited time with patients, and therefore, ironically, they don't have much patience. So what was your experience like with those doctors in terms of like, I guess if you could give us your experience of like how it was like dealing with them and whether you found any help with visiting them at all.
Um, yeah, sadly, yeah, pretty much no help at all. Um, I went to see different GPs in the NHS. I went to see different consultants privately. Went to see all kinds of doctors because I just had to rule out everything, to do every test in regards to, let's say, my spine, my brain, my heart, my stomach, everything, because I was having pains all over my body, symptoms everywhere. So I didn't even know where to start. So I had to go through the motions and, see every doctor. But yeah, they were just very dismissive. And most of them told me that, yeah, it was anxiety. And I think one doctor even made me cry just by the way he talked because of just how dismissive he was. And I was trying to explain to him just exactly how horrible I felt. And for him to maybe look more into my tests and, tell me exactly what's going on. And but yeah, they were just very dismissive and yeah, not helpful at all, sadly.
Yeah, and the kind of tests that they do, again, I don't know if this has changed at all, in the NHS, are the kind of tests that just won't ever, if you've
Mm.
got chronic illness, nothing will come up. It's only stuff that's going to like threaten your life there and then, and therefore the kind of tests they do are not useful at all. And I kept for some reason I just kept getting the same tests over and over again because I'd see a new doctor and they'd get me to do the same test. How are you dealing with, I mean, God, I cannot imagine with one child, let alone three children, going through this. How are you navigating motherhood and going through this at the same time? Did you have a lot of support? Like, how was that? How was that side of things?
Yeah, well, thankfully, my husband has been by my side all this time, and he has been amazing, helping me all the way through. But it was like a shock to both of us. One day I'm like this, and the next day, that's it. I'm out of action completely. I can't take care of the children. And my youngest one, he was only 6 months old at that time that I got sick. And my older ones were, I think, 2 and 3. So very young. And yeah, he had to literally transfer all his work from office work to at home working, look after children, look after me, and we had to somehow survive for years, day by day. And of course, it's affected me, it's affected the children as well, because it's just such a shocking, traumatic, extreme experience to go through, that nobody really expects. And yeah, I mean, for years, I couldn't spend longer than maybe 10 minutes every day with my children because everything was too much for me. Everything would give me pain. So the light, I would have to wear dark glasses, and the blinds were down all day long. Any noise, I wouldn't be able to tolerate. It would bring me pain. Any movements around me, any touch would be painful. It's just, yeah, it was horrible, But now looking back at that and knowing what I know now, it's so clear. You can see how it's just your nervous system is in such an overstimulated, overly sensitive way that it cannot cope with simple life. Your body is saying stop, no more, and everything needs to change if you want to get better now. So yeah, I even had, for a few months, there was a period of time where I couldn't even talk at all, and that was just, yeah. I mean, I laugh now, but it's like a nervous laughter because if I think about it too deeply, it is still bringing those traumatic memories to me. And yeah, it's just, I'm so happy to be on the other side. And as you might know, it's not, I don't want to give people the wrong idea as well, where after you've healed, you're still kind of carrying on healing every day, because there's just so many pieces to the puzzle that you now have to change in your life, and you're just changing them one by one by one, and you of course getting stronger day by day by day, but you still have ups and downs, and that's normal. And I want people also to be encouraged by this and to not think that once you're healed, that's it, then you can, I don't know, start going to the gym 5 times a day, look after your children, go to work every day, do everything and be a superhuman, because this is what I've seen. Some people actually, that's what they think on my Instagram. And I think this is a false idea, and it's a false image that nobody should even be trying to achieve, because that's not realistic. And that's the kind of mindset that leads people to get sick and to then stay sick. So.
Yeah. I mean, the way I look at it and always have looked at it is, and then when I've seen people, had a number of people come on the podcast where they've got better and then they've kind of gone back to their old life and then they've got sick again. And I think it's, it's, without sounding too, I don't know, spiritual, it's the universe's way or our body's way of saying, no, this is a lesson you need to learn, and I'm going to keep punishing you until you learn your lesson. And yeah, I totally agree that kind of, it's not just an end point of, oh, I feel better now, I need to stop doing what I did to get me here, which kind of would make no sense. What over that 4-year period, so your understanding, I assume you're probably similar to me, in that you thought about things from a very Western medical point of view at the beginning. But then as time goes on and that system failed you, in the nicest possible way, you had to kind of do your own research and look elsewhere. Could you talk us through the 4 years in terms of how you start to look at other things, to start to get an understanding of nervous system and yeah, how did you even do that in the condition you were in?
Mm. Yeah. So after a few months, and after trying one thing after another, I reached out to an osteopath, who was actually very helpful. And, there's this certain technique, which I'm sure you've heard about, the pairing technique, and he was practicing that, and that apparently that helps some people with CFS. So I thought, okay, I'll try this because I'm trying anything at this point now. And I don't think that it helped my CFS at all, apart from probably getting me to be a bit more in my body, because it's kind of like massage. So it's probably like a type of somatic work, because you're actually feeling your body and you're not so much in your head. But what helped me a lot was the osteopath. He actually knew quite a lot about the mind-body connection, and he tried to bring it to my attention, and he gave me like a whole guide to read about it. And but sadly, I was in such a state where at that point, I couldn't even read anything. My brain wasn't able to think or to process information, so I couldn't even read that. But I just heard about it, and so I kept hearing from time to time about certain things like linguistic programming and brain retraining, but all of this sounded a bit woo woo to me, and because I didn't understand what it meant, and I was just like, like, what can it do to me? Like, obviously you can't change your brain, and what does it have to do with my physical symptoms? But then I think after years and years, I've been exposed to this more and more on social media and everywhere, thankfully. And at that point, I have already actually tried a few different courses on brain training and somatic work and all kinds of things. But I think it had to all come together for me to make sense. And at some point, I finally started to understand the mind-body connection. And so I understood how things work within our body, and I had to believe in that for that work to actually make sense and for it to start working. And yes, I started practicing that, and I think and I believe now that there is not one specific pathway to healing, because all of us are very different and healing must be personalized. So within all those different courses and different things that I was reading and researching myself throughout the years, I think this is where I found the different links, the missing links for my specific case. And I applied all the different parts to my life. And that's how healing started to unveil, basically.
When you with brain retraining, what particular courses were you looking at? 'Cause I think everyone here has probably listened to we've had DNRS, the Gupta, all of those kind of things. Which were the ones that you kind of delved into?
I can't actually remember all of them because I think I've done many of them. But DNRS. I did look into Gupta. I don't think I did the whole program, but I did some maybe things that he talked about, researched his work, CFS school. Sarah Jackson, she does different
Been on the show.
meetings as well. Oh, yeah, amazing.
Yeah.
And a few more, but it's not in my head currently. Yeah, but like 10 different things, probably 10 different courses.
Yeah, you sound like me. And do you think there's an element of, and I'm trying to figure this out myself. Whilst I've come a long way, I'm still not where I would like to be, but I'm definitely a lot better than I was. I wonder, because I've done a lot of different courses, a lot of different things, and sometimes I wonder whether my understanding of the whole process of brain retraining, nervous system dysregulation, was at a point where I could actually take that information on and therefore it have an impact. And then also, in addition to that, whether my nervous system was in a position where it could actually receive it. And I guess doing bits of a lot of different things over time, you gradually get to that place where your nervous system is in a position where it can kind of open up, I guess, and receive that information, and you can make steps forward. Does that make sense? Did you feel like that was similar to you?
Yeah, because I think well, it takes time for you to just appreciate and understand this new concept of how our mind and body are interconnected. And yeah, that's why I think it takes some time, and also the belief, because our neural pathways are so set in one direction, one way, it's very hard to then for them to change. So obviously, any new idea that comes your way, we kind of just chuck it away straight away because it's not something that we're used to. But I think if if a person is trying to heal, they really should first of all try to really understand the very basics of how our physiology works, so the nervous system and how it's connected to our brain, how our brain is connected to our body, because that's the missing piece, I think, for many people who might have struggles with understanding how brain training works, because they just reject the idea straight away because of not understanding the scientific basis of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, totally. And so trying to create a timeline here, into how long into that 4 year period were you kind of like, okay, makes so much sense to me, I'm going to go kind of as much as I can all in on this direction?
Well, I think it was by the end of sort of 4 years.
Okay.
Yeah, it took me a very long time. I think because for the first few years, due to maybe the severity of my symptoms as well, because I wasn't even able to understand much, process information, read things. But then with time, I think my nervous system calmed down just a bit, and just enough for me to be able to take in some bits of information. And that's when I looked into brain training. I really gave it a go. But in the beginning, because I still had a lot of unhelpful patterns of character, such as perfectionism, I was doing it in a way that was, and some courses were really encouraging you also to do it in a certain rigid way, which was very unhelpful to me, and I think to most people as well, because that's where you literally just pushing yourself, but in another direction. Okay, now I have to push myself in this way, to heal every day and to do this thing in a certain way for a certain amount of time. Otherwise, I won't be able to heal. So it took me some time after that to firstly work on my different fixed beliefs that were keeping me in that state of mind, to come to a place where I got a bit more relaxed about it. And I knew the scientific basis of this work, and I just started practicing it. I had the belief in it because I've seen other people who were helped by this. I knew that it could work for myself as well. If I just do it consistently, if I also add in all the other elements that I knew were missing in my story. And yeah, I just started practicing it every day, sometimes, not daily, because I didn't want to be rigid about it. And yeah, I think doing that together with getting rid of my fixed beliefs, because I think that's the part which can keep people stuck in certain fears about recovery, about symptoms, where even though they know with their head, for example, how to do the brain training, and they're practicing it, they might still have certain fears which hold them back from doing activities, or sometimes just brushing off certain symptoms. I'm not saying ignoring the symptoms, but not giving them as much attention or as much volume in your head as you should be.
Yeah, and what you said there resonates a hell of a lot with the rigidity, and what I struggled with a lot in the past was like it kind of feeling a little bit like schoolwork, and it was like I have to do this. And yeah, I didn't even realize I was a perfectionist until brain retraining, because I was like always just like, oh, if I don't do it exactly like this, and I just realized that was actually so common, and ironically probably why people get sick. And then I started to have a look at like other people. There's I don't know if you follow her. There's an Instagram account called Emma the Alchemist. I don't know if she's still called that. And she movement is medicine, like that's her like business. And she was chronically ill, and she essentially got better through dance and through moving her body. And I'm sure there was a lot of other things in addition to that, but that was the main thing for her. And I was like, okay, well, she's kind of like retraining her nervous system through a completely different way. You don't have to do it in this Gupta round thing. You can do it. And I feel like I have tried to apply that for myself, and getting enjoyment out of life, and actually doing something that's going to make you smile and laugh every day, which I'm assuming for yourself, there was probably leading up to the period where you got sick. Maybe there was a lot of times where you weren't doing that and you weren't taking care of yourself. Did you, in addition to doing like, the course kind of stuff, did you start to kind of look at, I guess more outside the box kind of things that meant you just kind of enjoying life a little bit more?
Um, yeah. I mean, I just had to really change my whole outlook on how I view things, how I view myself. And I think that comes from the different traumas that we all experience in our childhood, also in our adulthood. The very wrong picture that you have of yourself, and the different fears and anxieties, the wrong picture that you have of other people, on or the power that they might hold over you, what they might think about you. And yeah, so I think regulating my nervous system led to me being able to, just like you said, be more relaxed, have a life that's filled with more fun. And I think the opposite is true as well. Like you said, incorporating more fun stuff and more relaxing stuff into your life will also have an impact of regulating your nervous system, and that's very important. And actually, when I work with clients one-on-one, I always tell them to incorporate that. And that's like their homework, that's your homework. Incorporate fun, relaxing stuff into your life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, totally. And so in terms of, 4 years later, is that 2023 or that's 2023?
Yeah, around 23, I would say. Yeah.
Okay, so really not that long ago. Wow. What was I guess the turning point where you were like, huh, okay, life's not as horrible as it once was. Was it like an overnight thing, or was it a case of over a few months and then it started to speed up? Like what happened?
I think that it was the last few months, until there was one day I remember very vividly where I simply decided and I understood that I was healed. And I think some people might not agree with me about that. Because at that point, actually, around 1.5 years ago, 1 year ago, I don't remember, I was still bedridden. But I have the definition of being healed, which might be very different to most people, which is it's the point where you understand exactly the root causes of why you got sick. You know exactly what to do about it to get better. You are doing and applying those things, and you are seeing progress, and you have a completely changed mindset in terms of how you view your symptoms. So I was no longer fearing them. I knew that they had no longer any power over me, because I knew how to get better at that point. And I was seeing progress, even though it was very small, very minute. Like, I don't know, going out in my wheelchair and then starting to go for very small walks. But I knew at that point that I was healed, because in my from my perspective, being healed is much more about your mindset rather than about the things that you can physically do, which is where I think many people get stuck, and they're like, oh, I'm still not healed. And like after 10 years, I'm still not healed. Well, I mean, and I have seen literally people with my own eyes who at that point in time, who could work, who could exercise, dance, go out, do things, but they're like, I'm still sick. I think that's the wrong kind of mentality, and something where people just get stuck, where that identity, that sick identity, is now a part of their lives, where they think, again, and it comes back to that perfectionistic mindset, where they think, unless I am, let's say, working out every day, working 9 to 5 every day, I don't take any holidays, I do everything, I don't ask for any help, blah, 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 blah. Unless I'm all of these things, I'm not healed. And this is where I see many, many people really make this mistake, and they really stay in that sick mentality and don't consider themselves healed, and they don't help themselves with their own healing by staying in that mindset.
That is, I've done a lot of episodes and I've never heard anyone put it like that. I think that's like really quite a powerful thing to say. And yeah, and I think I can imagine, and I don't know if you agree with me, there's probably people sitting there who are maybe a little bit triggered by it, because they're like, no, I'm not, and not healed. And I guess there's maybe, because I'm falling into that category, in the sense of, I'm not fully, even though I do go to the gym, this year I have had a lot of firsts that I haven't been able to do. I now regularly play paddle, which is like a tennis kind of thing I never did before. My goal next year is to go skiing. I haven't done that in ages. And yet I definitely don't associate with being sick. But I still have a lot of I still get a lot of symptoms. I still get a lot of setbacks. But yeah, I'm able to enjoy my life from a physical point of view. But I still never say to myself, "Oh, I'm healed." That's But it sounds to me like you're saying I should be saying that, because I know everything. It's and even that in itself, by admitting that to yourself, that's probably like a huge piece, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if I was working with yourself, if you were my client, I would definitely at this point say that you are healed. You should
Yeah,
consider yourself healed.
yeah.
And, like you said, even that does something in your brain, where every time that you think of yourself as healed. That in itself rewires your brain. That also rewires your body, rewires the certain fears that you might have about different activities, or, things like that. And also, when you mentioned that you still have symptoms, or you still might have setbacks, and again, like, I don't want to obviously turn it into
Oh,
like a,
no,
well,
no,
if I may,
yeah,
if I heard something like this, I would reiterate to you the fact that everybody in this world has symptoms at
mm,
one point or another. I don't consider people having symptoms the definition of, being sick. And I would go even further and say that most people, probably, or half people in the whole world, have chronic symptoms, because most people have chronic migraines or headaches or back pain or whatever, which in some is debilitating, in some is not, but they do have it. So does it mean that basically the whole world is chronically sick? I don't think so. I just think that this is a part of a human existence. That's what it is. So I don't think having symptoms, even at times chronic symptoms, it should be that defining factor where, okay, it means I'm chronically sick. Or the fact that you are not able right now, which I don't even know if you are or you're not, for example, to go and ski tomorrow.
mm,
Um, because again, I don't know if that's just your, that you might have certain fears around it, but your body is ready, or your body might not actually be ready. But regardless of the fact of what it is, I think that none of us are ready to do all the things that we want to do on a daily basis. And I really want people, like, I really like to hone in on that concept that we are not limitless. And this is something where, again, many people get like they get triggered about it and they get stuck as well. And I remember even recently, someone has been messaging me and they've sent me many messages throughout the probably a year where they've just been telling me that, you have certain limits. So that means you're not healed, because when you're healed, you're limitless, and that, and I made a few videos on that, saying that, well, actually, no, this is a wrong fixed belief that that person has. And this is what's keeping them stuck. Because being healed doesn't mean being limitless. All of us have limits. And even when you talked about things like you might have setbacks, I would reframe that completely. And I wouldn't call that setbacks. I would call that taking rest, for your nervous system, for your body. And again, because most of us who've been chronically sick, I think we have a very strange definition of rest, what it is and what it means and the significance of it. And we start to fear when we get tired and when we need rest. But I actually encourage people to rest, because again, the inability to rest properly and completely and to fear rest is what leads people to get chronic symptoms, So, yeah, I think resting is good and it should be done. And I actually think that it should be something like, like an item on your to-do list that you put in your calendar every day, that you take intentional rest. And I wouldn't call that a setback. I would call that self-care and healing. That's what healing is, taking care of yourself and giving your body what it needs.
Yeah, no, definitely. And yeah, I actually have reframed. I guess just haven't called it something different in terms of a setback. Setbacks have actually been amazing for me because they show that I can come through them. So an example, I did an episode on it, but like I was actually in the thick of it then. I got dengue fever earlier on in the year, and it's really serious. It's like a really serious thing to get, particularly if you've had chronic illness before. And it actually stuck with me for, it's only probably in the last month I've started to feel like I've moved through it. But mentally, that can be like really difficult when you've had something before that didn't end and you're waiting for it to end. But I think I just looked at the examples that I've shown myself over the last 2 to 3 years of things that have gone, had a setback. I'm going to need to come up with a different name for it. I've had a rest, but I haven't stopped. And I think that's you can have a rest, but to stop completely and go, I'm so scared, is, you freeze, let's say, freeze and go, okay, well, I can't do anything now. I'm so fragile. Whereas I've done a lot of work in building the mentality that I'm not broken, I'm not fragile, I'm not weak, I'm actually very strong. But sometimes I might need to just take a breath, take a step back sideways, and then keep going forward. And I think, I couldn't agree more that reframing those kinds of things and building a different identity, super important. So that's amazing. And so when you've on the other side of this, what are the things you do now regularly to maintain where you're at, but also improve? Because my goal isn't just to have no symptoms; it's to experience a level of wellness and health that most 99% of people on this earth don't get a chance to do.
Yeah, I think somewhere in my head, I also have this goal, and I think probably a lot of us have this thing in common where we are high achievers, isn't it? And we just want to push through and do more and do more. And this is a part of what got us sick in the first place. But now knowing what we know, we can manage ourselves a bit better, but still, hopefully, be able to achieve the different things that we want. And definitely, yes, that's one of the things that I really crave, that I really want. So, I'm able to exercise. I'm able to do the different things that I enjoy in terms of movement, like swimming and everything. But I think that because all of us are different and that we have different physiologies, I think all of us will be able to still achieve different levels of wellness, different levels of, activity, simply because we are just different, our makeup, our DNA, and everything. Yeah, I just try to do daily movement. As much as my energy and time allows me, I try to exercise. And again, I try to do things that I enjoy, like swimming, and I really want to get into other different sports that I really enjoy. Because again, just doing something fun really also rewires your brain at the same time, which is amazing. I do take different supplements that I feel is a very important part of anyone's life who wants to live an optimal life, because every person in this world has some kind of deficiency, because we can't get, sadly, everything from our diets, because the food has changed, and all kinds of things, and toxicity, and things that are not organic, and on and on and on. I try to take intentional rest, where I stop before I feel the need to stop. And I just, some days I just take that intentional rest every day. Sometimes it's once a week, whenever I feel like it. I don't really pay much attention to it, in terms of, I don't, this is not a setback, like some people might see. I see it as me taking rest because I've changed my relationship with rest. I don't fear it. I crave it. I like it. People were made in this way, where we do activities, then we rest. And also, I think the healing culture is very similar to the hustle culture that is very much promoted on social media and everywhere, where you work yourself to the bone, and, you're the boss. And unless you achieve top in everything, then you're not trying hard enough. And I think the same could be applied to that healing culture, where like you said, if I can't do everything that I want to do on a certain day, if I haven't climbed a mountain, quite literally, then I'm not healed, or, I'm having a setback and I'm not doing well. But yeah, I think, like you said, thinking about your firsts and all of your wins, and really even writing them down right now, it's a very important thing. And I used to do that for many weeks and months at first, when I was recovering, and now I've stopped doing that. But yeah, I just I try to stick to what I preach, in terms of, like, in different directions, because it's such an open and broad question. So even things like setting boundaries with people, with even myself, in terms of how I treat my own body and my mind, I think is very important. And that is, I always say, that is one of the biggest parts of recovery. I think for probably 95% of people, because this is that part of self-care, and it adds to regulating your nervous system when you have healthy boundaries, and you're able to then feel safer in this world, around people and around different things. And yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, no, definitely a great answer. What would you say to someone who's listening to this right now, who's at, the place you were in a year in, very confused, doesn't feel like they've got enough energy to kind of continue, finding it very difficult to believe in their own recovery? And what would you say to someone right there to kind of, I guess, inspire them to keep going and to know that there is light at the end of the tunnel?
Yeah, I would just encourage them to listen to interviews like the ones that you conduct. Ideally, if they can, if they have the stamina for it, every few days, listen to a new interview like this. Um, that in itself will rewire your brain and set it up for success to think of, okay, actually, I am recovering, I am able to do it. And one of the first things I would also encourage that person to do is to learn how to rest properly, because all the people who are chronically sick, even though they're bedridden, I'm yet to meet one who actually rests properly, um, who is able to calm down their mind, their thoughts, get in touch with their body. So looking into simple somatic practices that you could do, which would help you on a very basic physiological level, where, for example, you would notice your breathing, how you breathe. And I remember also very vividly that moment years ago when I was in bed. And for the very first time, because I started to do certain somatic exercises, I've noticed actually that my breathing was very fast and very shallow. And I realized that that's how I breathe pretty much 24/7, and I thought, this alone would put me in a state of high alert, would give me a lot of the different symptoms that I'm experiencing. And I had to intentionally set aside time every day to change my breathing until it became automatic, that my breathing was deep, wasn't shallow, it wasn't fast. So simple and basic things like this that they could focus on, in terms of, how are you feeling emotionally? Where do you feel those emotions? Is there any tension anywhere? If you could do certain, very simple stretching in your bed, do it. But if not, don't put any pressure on yourself to do anything that you can't do. And then after that, and after you're able to learn how to rest properly and to set aside, that's very important, to set aside your computers and your phones, and try to do that even for 1 week and see if you feel any better. And I'm pretty sure that you would feel better even by 2%. And then if you do that for a month, you'll see even more progress, And this is where that true restful time of healing happens. And only after that, look into things like trauma work, brain retraining work, because if you dive into that straight away before covering basics of the different physiology that happens within you, which I think is what many people do, then it will be very hard for you to reap any benefits from those different tools, because you haven't even got in touch with your own body. How are you supposed to do brain training and different things when you haven't even changed the way you breathe, for example?
Yeah, no, definitely. I couldn't agree more. I think a lot of people dive into doing all of these practices, me included. I was definitely like that, and yet they're not taking care of the very basic necessities of, are they even looking at how they sleep, how they breathe, as you said, are they moving, all the stuff that's free. And I think I was quick to spend thousands of dollars, pounds on things that I thought might be a silver bullet, a magic bullet, whatever the phrase is, that would heal me. And yeah, I wasn't doing all the stuff that was free. So I'm always very honest with myself now. Whenever I get symptoms, whenever I have rests, I'm going to call them rests, not setbacks. Am I doing the basics? And if I'm not, don't worry, I need to do the basics better. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story. It's been amazing. I love it when I hear something new, and definitely, you've really helped me today. So yeah, that's amazing. Thank you so much for that. If people want to reach out to you, speak to you, ask you any questions, best to do that via Instagram.
Yeah, by Instagram.
And
Santa.wellness.
Santa.wellness. Okay, cool. We'll include it in the show notes. And thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story. Really appreciate it. Super excited to get that out. And thank you once again.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's a privilege to be on your show. And, I've been dreaming about it, and I was still in bed when I was watching some of your interviews, and I'm like, it's amazing to be here.
Amazing. Do you know what? I had someone reach out to me yesterday saying they watched the show like a couple of years ago. when they were dreaming of being in this position, and then now they're ready to tell their story. That's just the most amazing thing for me to hear, because that's the whole point of this, right? Like it gives even more hope to people that, you know, they're watching this right now, and then they will be on the show in 1 to 2 years, whatever it would be. And so, yeah, that's amazing. You've come full circle. That must feel amazing to you.
Yes, yeah, yeah. And thank you so much for doing this. And I think that's what you say. Healing is only a matter of time or something like this.
Yeah, I think it's just like kind of gosh, I should know. It's like not healing is possible, healing is inevitable.
Yeah,
Uh
inevitably. Exactly.
yeah, and I think that's like a huge shift for me, in that I can now, uh, even though I'm not considering myself fully healed, which after today I should do,
You are,
I'm
you
enjoying.
are.
Yeah, I now I will. I'm enjoying the process like a lot more. I can enjoy my life, and if you have that, I think it's when people have that finite, I have to be healed within 2 months or something, that then has all of the stress around it. And if you take that stress away, just no, I'm going to work on myself. I'm doing the right things. Exactly what you said. I'm doing all the right things. I believe this. I'm on the right path. Suddenly your nervous system calms down, you know, and you can take over. It doesn't have to be that on like autopilot. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. It was amazing.
No worries. You too.